Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. Today is Tuesday. We're going to be moving into the second video for Psychedelia Week. Yesterday we checked out some Tool. Today we're going to be looking at a band called The Doors. The song's called The End, and yeah, let's dive into it. Lots of thes going on. Yeah, lots of heavy right panning. Very unbalanced. We'll see where they take this. Yeah. Lots of nice little nuances, ornamentations in this guitar line.
This is the end, beautiful friend. This is the end, my only friend. The end of our elaborate plans. The end of everything that stands. The end.
Yeah, we got an organ in here.
No safety,
tambourine.
no surprise, the end.
Really building this atmosphere. Taking their time, letting it develop.
Again. Can you picture what will be so limitless and free? Desperately in need of some stranger's hand in a desperate land.
It is really interesting to hear a mix that favors the drums almost entirely on left pan. Bends.
Lost in a romance, wilderness of pain. And all the children.
Yeah, we got some counterpoint in the organ against the vocals.
All the children.
The organ's also kind of doing its own thing rhythmically. And really great use of contrast so far as well. It's interesting to hear those open snares hit on the left and reverberate to the right.
There's danger on the edge of town. Ride the King's Highway. Weird scenes inside the gold mine.
I'm waiting to see where they take this. We're 3 minutes into this single idea.
West, baby.
That organ.
Ride the snake. snake he's long, 7 miles.
The lyrics are at least a little ungathering, a bit nonsensical.
He's old and his skin is cold. The West is the best. The West is the best. Get here and we'll do the rest.
Yeah, we got a little bit of call and response between the guitar and the organ there.
The bluebird is calling us. Driver, where you taking us?
Ooh. Yeah, that little bit of triplet modulation there. That was fun. I thought we were going to shift tempo.
The killer awoke before dawn. He put his boots on. He took a face from the ancient gallery and he walked on down the hall. He went into the room where his sister lived, and then he paid a visit to his brother, and then he walked on down the hall, and he came to a door, and he looked inside. Father, yes, son, I want to kill you. Mother, I want to.
Yeah, a little bit of momentary chaos there.
Come on, baby, take a chance with us. Come on, baby, take a chance with us. Come on, baby, take a chance with us and meet me at the back of the blue bus. Do not blue rock on that blue bus. Do not. Come on, yeah.
Ooh.
This is the end, beautiful friend. This is the end, my only friend. The end. It hurts to set you free.
Clever use of bookending with this concept.
Follow me. The end of laughter and soft light. The end of nights we try to die. This is the end.
All right. Hmm. This is one of those songs. Oh. All right. So, what's going on here? We have a song that very heavily works within an atmosphere. I find all of the irony, and I'm sure quite a few of you got a chuckle out of it when we were about 20% through the song, and I said, I'm waiting for the next section to come, and you knew that there was not really a next section. That's the whole song fits within that one idea, aside from the two chaotic sections. This is one of those songs that you really have to feel out, though. Me sitting here analyzing it critically and trying to figure out specifically what they're doing is not the right way to absorb or explore this track. I say that as a preface to going into an analysis of what's going on in this track. This is definitely a song that would take multiple listens, at least now that I know what I'm in for, to truly understand the depth of it, especially going into this not knowing the lyrics. Though I suppose, even with the lyrics, I might still be a bit lost. The story seemed to jump around a bit, if there is a story. It seems like it could be several events that well, actually, there were several events that I kind of picked up on, and I'm not sure how they were all tied together. Um, Also, when did this come out? This seems like an old 1967. Yeah, that for some reason I was thinking The Doors was a early 2000s, mid 2000s alt rock group, and I don't know why. This was a bit of a shock there at the beginning to find out that this felt more 60s, 70s kind of stuff than what I was expecting. So it was a little shock. Um, yeah, let's dig into this. Um, First, I gotta talk about the mix because I think it's the most interesting part. It's it's easy to kind of get used to modern production ideals. Um, and it's always interesting, I think, to go back and see what might have been acceptable or even common practice in other eras of any sort of creation. You can go back and look at old cinematography in films, look at old production in music, look at not even production but performance concepts. What was the standard for music performance or theater, and see how that differs from today. And I think that's always interesting. And checking this out, the first thing I noticed was the hi-hat clicking, using the hi-hat pedal to create a metronome. It was the very first percussive element we heard, and it was pan left. I'm like, okay, whatever. Usually, I don't know where the hi-hat typically gets put, but the drums are usually an all-encompassing thing in modern production. Sort of centered, but also you get some stuff around the panning as well. So you kind of get this fully enveloped percussive section. And this was when they brought the snare in and the toms and the bass. Everything was left pan. I was just like, wow, that's a very interesting sound. To me, the percussion is the sort of the stability. It's the foundation of the group. And it's just, to me, that makes sense to put in the middle, especially since the fact that the percussion, the drum kit, can get quite heavy, quite loud. It makes sense to root it in the center to keep that stability and put some of your less powerful instruments to the side. Which is why I think, at least today, we see a lot of center drums with guitars panned. At least to me, might also be biased by modern standards, but that seems to be a more balanced way to do it. And the effect is, if we do it this way, is that we get exactly what happened here, especially in those more chaotic sections where the song can feel lopsided. At least it did to me. Again, that could just be my biases. I'm used to hearing the balance done a specific way, and maybe it's not imbalanced, just a different form of balance I'm not adjusted to. And then the other thing I thought was interesting mix-wise was in the chaotic section. I said it was getting busy, it was getting a bit chaotic, and I mean that not just musically, but mix-wise. All of the instruments were vying for the same volume level, the same space. Some of the instruments, the guitars and the organs and the vocals, were all vying for the same range. And, I've mentioned in the past about creating music and mixing music so that instruments don't step on each other's toes, so that everybody, no matter how layered or chaotic a section may be getting, that everything has its placement in the puzzle. And it doesn't get too crazy. It doesn't get crazy to listen to. It creates an essence of insanity or an essence of chaos, but it isn't difficult to actually listen to actually parse what's going on. And that's exactly what happened here. It was chaotic. It was not anywhere near as chaotic as some of the Dillinger Escape Plan or any of that, super hyperactive insanity metal that we've heard on the channel. This was less chaotic than that as far as the music on the paper, but it sounded infinitely more difficult to parse what was going on because of the way the mix was done. The mix was not done in a way to allow every instrument to have its own little space, and it felt like everything was tripping over one another. And I don't know where to lean on that. I would need some context, whether that was intentional or if that was more of a thing of the times. 67. I'm trying to think of any other song that we've heard. We've definitely listened to a lot of prog rock from the early 70s that had some really good mixing in it, but I might be confusing that with remasters. I have listened to some 70s prog that's been remastered on this channel. Yeah. I don't have the context for other heavily layered, chaotically placed music from the mid to late 60s. 67 would be sort of in that. I guess you could lean more towards the late 60s on that. Yeah, like I said, I'm just kind of curious whether this was the norm. It was just what they did, maybe because of a lack of technology or because this was the standard, the basic practice of the time, or if it was done intentionally. And it really doesn't matter in the larger picture. The end result is that it sounds crazy, it sounds difficult to parse, and it stands in stark contrast to what came before it. And that's the purpose of those sections, to create contrast and expand upon the narrative by showcasing some of the mentality of this main character, it seems, and the duality between them, the calm and collected versus the chaotic. But it's one of those larger questions that, just as a composer who's trying to get into production and learning how to mix and master, I'm just curious about. Like I said, it doesn't change the music itself. It's interesting to me. History, especially music history, has always been interesting to me, to kind of see how things have become, where decisions were made, what decisions were compromises. Some very important musical decisions that have defined songs or genres or careers have been just a product of the time, or something they had no control over. It was just something that happened in the studio, or just a lack of technology to achieve what they wanted to, and it became so definitive, so iconic that some people might believe it was intentional when really it wasn't. It removes nothing from the art, though. Just, like I said, a curiosity of mine. But we get past the mix and we get into some of the music, some of the stuff that's actually on the paper. And there's a lot of little ideas in here that don't gel well with each other. I think specifically the one that stands out the most to me is going to be the organ. I do not get the organ. It seems to be on its own level, in its own area. It is just, to me, it's an oddity. And maybe that's its purpose. It's supposed to be odd. It's supposed to be the red flag, assuming that I'm correct in this idea of the song being the duality of a person, or maybe even the just duality as a concept. Um, Having that twinge of oddness, within sort of the calmer section of the song that provides foreshadowing for the crazier part that's going to come later. But rhythmically, the guitar, the drums, the vocals, they're all pretty much in tune with each other. Rhythmically, melodically, tonality, they're all really working together to create a specific atmosphere, and I think they achieve that. And then you get this center panned organ that's mixed just a little below the vocals. If the vocalist is singing, the organ gets kind of drowned out a little bit. But between the vocal lines, the organ shines through a little bit, and it's rhythmically at odds with the drumming. It's tonally at odds with the guitar. It is playing notes that are creating very dissonant dyads with what the guitar is doing. It is just sort of in its own little world, and it perplexes me. Like I said, on an artistic level, I'm curious if it fits thematically with what the song is attempting to achieve, and hopefully somebody can comment and shed some light, shed some context on that. But just musically, it's sitting out there by itself, and I'm sure it was done for a reason. But it is interesting that we have a 12-minute song almost, and a good 9 minutes of that is the same idea. It's that really chill, kind of relaxed, uh, groovy kind of vibe. And then you got that organ just doing its own thing, and it feels so out of place to me on a musical level. But I suppose thematically, like I said, it could stand for something. And worst case scenario, it could act as foreshadowing for the insanity that is to come. The vocals, I think, are interesting as well. Not the main part, not the 9 core minutes of the song. I think that's sort of just a general sort of. I don't want this to sound derogatory or negative, but like a hippie style of vocals is kind of what I'm getting out of this, right? Just kind of chill, relaxed, low energy, or at least the portrayal of low energy. But then when we get to those chaotic sections, and we get to hear the vocalist unleash, so to speak, And really, to me at least, it seems like the id is taking over. I don't know how much of that is rehearsed and how much of it was improvised even on the studio recording, but it's a wild flip. We go from nothing to 100, and I love it. I absolutely love it. There's definitely a lot of chaos going on in the music in the two chaotic sections. Not just in what they're playing, but how they're mixed together, how it's all mastered. It is a chaotic sound underneath, but the vocalist sells both of those sections for me 100%. It is it is wild to see the dude flip a switch and go from someone relatively calm and collected, even though sometimes he talks about some pretty sketchy things, walking into a room and telling his parents he wants to kill them. Um, it's still done with a rather chill demeanor. But then he just flips that switch, goes into this chaos mode, screaming, wailing like a banshee. These short, abrupt staccato notes, just kind of getting these like almost full breathiness. You get that gut push of the air, and then that's it. You don't really get any of the resonance of that tone. Um, yeah, it's just very animalistic. Both times he goes into this mode, and it is fascinating to listen to. Adds so much character to the chaotic music, and maybe at the time the music itself would have been revolutionary. I don't know what I don't know how popular or how often bands explored more avant-garde style of writing like they did here, really digging into chaos and dissonance. But today we have entire genres built on that. It's not as shocking for me to hear, even if it's not something I'm completely attuned to. I've kind of come to respect it and understand it. It's not shocking to my ears, but maybe it was back then. But at least to my modern ears, it's the vocals that sell that section, that really amplify it from stuff I've heard before to a totally new look on this idea. And yeah, that's just. I don't know if I would go back and listen to. Oh, that'd be a disservice, though. I was going to say, I don't know if I'd go back and listen to the full 12 minutes, but I would like to hear those two chaotic sections again. But without the other 9 minutes of calm, it's not going to hit as hard. I talk about contrast a lot. I do. I feel like I talk about it too much. I bring it up every video almost. But this is exactly what I mean when I say that if you want your 11s to sound like 11s, you got to put them up against some 5s. When you have 9 minutes collectively, not straight, but collectively, of running at this cool, collected, chill atmosphere, those crazy sections hit hard, especially on a first time listen when I'm not expecting. But around the 6 minute mark, I think I have the song kind of pegged. I'm pretty sure I can expect what's gonna happen, and they just sweep the carpet right out from under me, in the best way possible. Absolutely loved it. There was one more thing I wanted to talk about though, and slip in my mind. Oh, it's the chaotic section. All right, so the first time we go into it, quite unexpected. First of all, not even expecting it at all. It is just not a style that I think is going to show up in here, but it's a nice gradual build up into it. This was the lyrical part where he walked in on his parents and said he was going to kill them. He said, "Hey, Dad, I want to kill you. Hey, Mom," and then gibberish screaming, which, if that's not the best way to introduce this section, I don't know what is. Modern heavier metal would definitely have probably a repetition. Hey, dad, I want to kill you. Hey, mom, I want to kill you. And then kill you would probably be some sort of slide into a fry scream or slide down into a growl. Very between the buried and me style. Um, and you hit the note clean and then you edge into it and you put the distortion on top of it. And then the music would get heavier as well. Having it just be gibberish seems like such a time capsule of another era that I kind of wish more vocalists would dig into today. We hear a lot of very eloquent descents into madness, and I really enjoy this one just being madness. It's such a novelty to me, something we don't hear that often today. And if you have any examples of a modern band who does utilize gibberish to showcase mental breaks or whatever like this, I'm down for that. Like I said, it's novel. I love it. It's a way of having the vocalist break into character, and I think that's very admirable for the art form. But the rest of the instruments, I think I just punched you guys. I punched the microphone. Uh, but for the instruments to slide into this chaos, both with volume and rhythmic complexity, is also interesting because we get to hear the gradual unraveling of the mix. And I already talked about how the mix is a little off here, where everybody's fighting for the same spot in the mix, for the same spot in the range, for the same spot in the panning. It is a very chaotic section to begin with, but it's interesting to hear how quickly the mix breaks down. Uh, because I already mentioned the mix is interesting as it is. Even in the bass area, having the drums left panned, having the organ in the middle doing its own thing, it's already an interesting mix to my ears. And then to hear the mix get thrown out the window, and it sounds like everybody's just playing. I mean, yeah. And to slowly ascend into this chaos. Beautiful. Also, is this a jam song? There is a lot of sections in here where there doesn't seem to be any strong elements of compositional cohesion. Everybody's playing in the same key. Sometimes we hear some back and forth of ideas, maybe rhythmic ideas or melodic ideas. I mentioned there's some call and response in the organ and piano, no, the organ and guitar at one point. But nobody's really hard locked into similar ideas. It's all vague similarities between what everyone's doing. And it makes me wonder how much of this is improvised. Also, given that it's 1967 when this was recorded, maybe recorded, at least created. Um, I don't know much about production history. I know about music history, not much about production history. But I think this would have been the time around tape, which means everybody got into a booth and recorded together, which could actually, now that I think about it, influence the mix and the panning. If you record with your, left microphones pointed at the drum, or if you have, just three microphones pointed at the group, not so much every individual instrument getting a microphone, then that might be one way that the panning and sort of spatial mixing gets done the way it does. But anyways, there's a lot of elements on here that don't necessarily line up with anybody else, and it feels like everybody could be improvising. And I don't think that the end result of the song would have changed much at all. It's all about creating that mood. So I am curious if this was improvised or if every single note for every single instrument is hand-picked and played that way. I am curious about that. All right, those are my thoughts on The Doors, The End. Yeah, there is something about this era of music that I don't get. And that's not to say that I don't understand. It's just I don't think it's made for me. especially since I enjoy a lot of modern uh, aspects of music, especially production wise. But there's certainly something fascinating about the way that they went about creating this. I could deal without the 9 minutes of relatively similar playing. Definitely started to get a bit old for me about the halfway point. But like I mentioned, those highs would not have hit the way they did without that extended experience, extended stay inside the main aspect. So I respect it, right? It's not necessarily for me, but I definitely respect what they're doing here. And there's there's multiple sections that I actually really enjoyed, or aspects I should say. So yeah, this is where you guys come in. No, those are my thoughts. What are your thoughts on the Doors' The End? That's such an awkward thing to say. The Doors' The End. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know what your thoughts are, if you enjoyed it or not, anything that stuck out to you that I missed. If you have any context or have answers to any of the questions I asked throughout here, go ahead and drop those comments. I am ready to learn just as much as I'm ready to, I don't want to say teach, but I'm ready to learn as much as I'm ready to give out the information of what I've heard. When you're done commenting, you can head up to the description box. In there is a link for Linktree. It'll take you to a menu that looks like this. You can support me through Patreon. You can join the Discord community. You can email me. You can submit a special selection. There's a ton of stuff in here, and it's really simple to use. You just click on Linktree, and then you got the menu, and you click on one of these nice buttons, and it takes you places. When you're done with that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. All three things help out the channel immensely. I'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC with the next psychedelic track. Also, 8 minutes ago, we dropped our special selection for the day as well, so that is ready to go if you're ready to watch it. We're looking at a song from the Automata soundtrack. We also did that yesterday. This is a different song from the same soundtrack, though. Alright, until next time, remember to be critical but not cynical of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.